Yeezy, the brand that changed fashion forever. How Kanye West built and lost a billion-dollar empire. The most disruptive brand of the modern era. Luxury fashion has always been controlled by gatekeepers, historic houses, European designers, generations of tradition. For decades, the rules seemed fixed. The industry operated through established pathways, prestigious design schools, luxury apprenticeships, family legacies, institutional approval. The people who succeeded in fashion generally came from within fashion. The system was designed that way, and because the system controlled access, it controlled influence. Then, someone arrived who wasn't supposed to belong, a rapper, a producer, a cultural provocateur, someone the fashion world initially dismissed. That person was Kanye West, and the brand he created would become one of the most influential fashion businesses of the 21st century. Not because it followed the rules, but because it broke them. Because Kanye approached fashion differently. He viewed clothing the same way he viewed music, as culture, as communication, as identity. He wasn't interested in simply making garments. He wanted to shape how people saw themselves, how they dressed, how they participated in culture. And that ambition would eventually produce a brand whose influence reached far beyond sneakers. This is the story of Yeezy, the brand that changed fashion forever. Before Yeezy. Long before Yeezy existed, Kanye West had an obsession. Fashion. Not music, not fame, fashion. Throughout the early 2000s, Kanye repeatedly tried to enter an industry that didn't take him seriously. Luxury fashion viewed him as an outsider, a celebrity, a musician trying to play designer. But Kanye saw something different. He believed fashion was becoming disconnected from culture. Too exclusive, too insulated, too slow. And he believed he could change it. The problem was that nobody in luxury agreed. Many executives saw celebrities as temporary. Fashion houses were built around heritage, craftsmanship, tradition. Kanye represented disruption, and disruption makes established industries uncomfortable, yet he continued pushing forward, attending fashion shows, building relationships, studying design, learning manufacturing, traveling internationally to understand how luxury worked behind the scenes. He wasn't treating fashion as a hobby, he was treating it as a long-term mission, one that would eventually become larger than anyone imagined. The failure that created Yeezy. Before Yeezy became a billion-dollar phenomenon, it failed, repeatedly. Fashion insiders criticized Kanye's early collections. Reviews were often brutal. The industry questioned his legitimacy, his qualifications, his vision. Many observers assumed the experiment would end quickly, that Kanye would eventually return his focus to music. But something important happened. Instead of retreating, he became more determined. Because Kanye wasn't trying to become another luxury designer. He was trying to create a new category entirely, one that blended fashion, music, streetwear, and culture into a single system. And that vision would eventually become Yeezy. The criticism also revealed something useful. Traditional fashion and popular culture were moving in different directions. Luxury still believed authority came from institutions. Consumers increasingly believed authority came from influence, from relevance, from cultural impact. Kanye recognized that shift before many luxury executives did. And while critics focused on runway reviews, he focused on the audience. The audience that was growing larger every year. Younger consumers, digital consumers, consumers who cared more about cultural significance than fashion tradition. That audience would eventually become the foundation of Yeezy's success. The Adidas deal. Everything changed when Adidas made a decision that would reshape the sneaker industry. They gave Kanye something most companies wouldn't: creative control. And with that freedom, Yeezy exploded. Not immediately, but methodically. The first Yeezy releases felt different, minimalist, futuristic, unusual, and most importantly, scarce. The demand was extraordinary, because Yeezy wasn't just selling footwear, it was selling cultural relevance. And for a generation obsessed with identity, that proved incredibly powerful. The partnership benefited both sides. Adidas gained access to one of the most influential cultural figures in the world. Kanye gained the manufacturing infrastructure needed to execute his vision at scale. Together, they created a formula competitors struggled to replicate. Each release generated attention. Each launch generated discussion. When the empire stopped growing, the greatest threat to Yeezy was never competition. It was concentration. Because unlike most luxury brands, Yeezy and Kanye West were inseparable. The designer was the brand. The brand was the designer. Its identity, its energy, its controversy, its appeal. Everything flowed through a single person. And while that created extraordinary momentum, it also created extraordinary risk. When controversy surrounding Kanye escalated, the consequences extended beyond headlines. They reached the business itself. And suddenly, one of the most successful partnerships in fashion history faced an uncertain future. The end of the Adidas era. Then came the moment that changed everything. The partnership between Adidas and Yeezy ended. A relationship that had generated billions of dollars was suddenly over. The impact was immediate. The sneaker industry reacted, the fashion industry reacted, financial markets reacted. Because Yeezy had become more than a collaboration. It had become a business ecosystem. And now that ecosystem faced an unprecedented challenge. Could Yeezy survive without Adidas? Could Adidas thrive without Yeezy? And perhaps most importantly, could the brand maintain its cultural influence after losing its largest platform? Did Yeezy change fashion permanently? To answer that question, look around. Look at modern sneakers. Look at luxury streetwear. Look at the dominance of neutral colors, oversized silhouettes, minimal branding. Many of the design ideas that once seemed radical are now common. The industry adapted. Brands copied the aesthetic. Designers borrowed the language. Consumers embraced the philosophy. And that may be Yeezy's greatest achievement. Not the products, the influence. Because products can disappear. Influence remains. The lesson of Yeezy. The Yeezy story reveals something important about modern luxury. Culture now moves faster than fashion. The brands that dominate are often the ones that understand cultural shifts first, not necessarily the ones with the longest history or the most prestigious heritage. Yeezy succeeded because it recognized a change happening beneath the surface, a shift in how people viewed status, identity, and self-expression. And, for a time, final verdict, the brand that forced fashion to change. Few brands have changed fashion as dramatically as Yeezy. Fewer still have done it in such a short period of time. It challenged luxury, redefined sneakers, influenced an entire generation of design, and proved that cultural power could rival traditional fashion power. The empire may have changed, the partnerships may have ended, but the influence remains. Because whether the fashion industry wanted to admit it or not, Yeezy didn't just participate in modern fashion, it reshaped it.